Nothing meaningful moves by accident. In the economy of life, today you don't lack resources. You lack placement. There are people who wake every day with strength in their bones, ideas in their minds, prayers on their lips, and yet they sleep every night with empty hands. Not because heaven is silent, not because effort is missing, but because accuracy is absent. There is a location where your name is already recognized. There is an environment where your gift is already celebrated. There is a position where struggle becomes flow and effort becomes ease, and that position is called alignment. Until you stand where you were meant to stand, even your loudest prayer will sound like silence. But the moment alignment happens, provision responds like it has always been waiting for you. Alignment is not a poetic idea. It is a governing law that controls access to provision. In life, nothing meaningful flows randomly. Everything that carries value responds to placement, order, and positioning. When a man or woman is in the wrong place, even heaven's best intentions can look like silence. It is possible to be gifted, prayerful, hardworking, and still disconnected from the stream that was assigned to nourish you. Alignment speaks of accuracy in purpose, accuracy in assignment, accuracy in relationships, and accuracy in timing. To be aligned is to be positioned where your gifts match a real need, where your effort connects to demand, and where your movement is synchronized with divine direction. Misalignment is like planting seed in a desert and then blaming the seed for not growing. The problem is not the seed, the problem is the environment. Many people have spent years rebuking poverty, praying against hardship, and fighting battles that required no warfare, only correct placement. They were not poor, they were misplaced. They were not rejected, they were misdirected. They were not cursed. They were simply operating in a location that was not designed to reward their kind of value. When you are aligned, you do not have to beg for doors to open. You move toward doors that were already coded to recognize you. Your voice carries authority in the spaces designed for your assignment, but it may sound weak and irrelevant in the wrong room. There are rooms you will walk into and struggle to be heard, and then there are rooms where your whisper creates movement, determines the difference. Many people think success is about force, about shouting louder, hustling harder, and pushing longer. But power is not in pressure, it is in placement. When a river is aligned with its path, it does not struggle to flow. It moves effortlessly, shaping landscapes and supporting life wherever it goes. But when it is blocked, redirected, or trapped, it becomes stagnant or destructive. In the same way, your life is designed to flow in a particular direction. When you discover that direction and submit to it, provision becomes a natural consequence of obedience. Alignment is often uncomfortable before it becomes rewarding. It can require separation from familiar environments, people, and habits that feel safe but are not productive. Sometimes the hardest part of aligning is letting go of what is familiar to embrace what is purposeful. Many people would rather stay in a known struggle than walk into an unknown assignment. Yet comfort is one of the greatest enemies of alignment. Growth demands movement, and movement demands courage. When you begin to align, your appetite changes, your priorities shift, your conversations evolve, and your tolerance for distraction decreases. You begin to feel a holy frustration with smallness, with repetition, with meaningless routines. This is not arrogance, it's awareness. Your spirit begins to recognize that there is more, and that more is not hidden in effort, but in position. The power of alignment is seen in simple things. A key has value, but only when it meets the right lock. A plug has power, but only when it meets the right socket. A message has impact, but only when it meets the right audience. In the wrong place, everything loses meaning. In the right place, even the smallest effort becomes effective. Some people think they need more strength, more connections, more money, but what they truly need is the right environment. When alignment occurs, help recognizes you, support gravitates toward you, systems open for you without explanation. Favor is not chasing opportunity. Opportunity begins to chase favor. Alignment makes things that were difficult suddenly become simple. Provision does not arrive because of noise, it arrives because of order. In life, alignment is discovered through listening, through self-awareness, through obedience to inner conviction. It is discovered by honest evaluation of your results, your peace, your growth, and your fruitfulness. Areas of misalignment often reveal themselves through consistent frustration without learning, through effort without progress, through prayer without clarity. When something is aligned, there is evidence of flow, of progress, of peace, even in pressure, even in challenges. There is a sense of purpose. But in misalignment, everything feels heavy, confusing, delayed, and draining. Many people confuse resistance with destiny, when in reality, some resistance is a sign to turn, not to push. Alignment unlocks provision because provision is not stored in wishing, it is stored in purpose. When you move into purpose, you step into the supply that backs it. Where purpose is absent, frustration is guaranteed. When you understand that your true assignment is a key, you begin to stop fighting battles that do not concern you and start investing energy in areas that are truly yours. Clarity becomes a shield, direction becomes protection, and as alignment deepens, identity becomes stronger. You no longer measure your life by other people's paths. You honor your design. And in honoring your design, you unlock what was designed to fund it. Tender resistance is another silent force that delays resources. Not all resistance is visible. Some of the strongest forms of opposition cannot be seen with physical eyes. They operate in patterns, in atmospheres, in bloodlines, in spoken words, in repeated failures, and in inherited fear. There are individuals who work twice as hard as others, yet receive half the results, not because of laziness, but because there is an invisible hand pressing against their progress. If you only fight what you can see, you will always lose what you cannot see. Resistance is spiritual, emotional, psychological, and sometimes ancestral. It is built through years of limitation, through generational beliefs that say, people like us do not go far, through systems that were designed to keep certain people at the bottom. When these things are not confronted, they operate silently, shaping outcomes without permission. Blender resistance does not always announce itself as a demon or a curse. Sometimes it simply appears as repeated failure, as constant delay, as near success that never becomes full success. You almost get the job, but something always goes wrong. You are almost promoted, but there is always a sudden change. You almost save money, but an emergency always appears. These patterns are not coincidences, they are signatures. They are evidence that something beyond normal circumstances is interfering. Many people internalize this, begin to blame themselves, doubt their worth, and slowly accept limitation as destiny. But there is a difference between a lesson and a limitation. Lessons come to build you. Limitations come to imprison you. Resistance thrives where ignorance remains. The first step to breaking resistance is awareness. When you become aware that something is fighting your progress, you stop accepting it as normal. You begin to challenge it in prayer, in mindset, in decisions, and in action. Resistance feeds on passivity. It grows stronger when you stay silent. But when you begin to rise with intentionality, with spiritual authority, With disciplined action, resistance begins to weaken. Many people want breakthrough, but they are still comfortable with patterns. To remove resistance, you must be violently loyal to your future and dangerously intolerant of repeated cycles. Means some resistance is rooted in family environments where money was always seen as evil, success was always criticized, and progress was always feared. When a person tries to rise beyond that level, the unconscious mind resists because it feels like betrayal. There are families that celebrate struggle as humility and view abundance as pride. Growing out of such systems requires intentional mental renewal. If your mind is not reset, you can break external barriers only to rebuild internal ones. Resistance is not only an external enemy, sometimes it is an internal agreement. Breaking that agreement is one of the most powerful and painful transformations a person can experience. Land resistance also shows up in the form of fear of visibility. Many people want money, but they do not want the responsibility, exposure, and accountability that comes with it. They want growth, but they fear change. They want new levels, but they are emotionally attached to familiar faces and places that cannot follow them. This inner conflict creates a spiritual break. You move forward physically, but your heart is still tied to yesterday. And because life responds to the heart more than to the mouth, progress slows down. Breaking resistance requires full surrender. You must mentally, emotionally, and spiritually give yourself permission to move ahead without apology. Every new level of provision demands the breaking of an old barrier. That barrier can be a belief, a relationship, a habit, a fear, or even an identity. When resistance remains unbroken, it will always fight new money, new opportunities, and new dimensions. But when resistance is confronted, exposed, and dismantled, something powerful happens. Life responds differently to you. Doors open that were previously invisible. People notice you differently. Ideas flow more freely. The atmosphere around your efforts changes. It begins to feel as if what was chasing you is now behind you, and what was running from you is now running towards you. Resistance delays resources, but it cannot permanently stop a determined and enlightened individual. Once you understand that what you are fighting is not only natural, but also spiritual, you stop fighting people and start fighting patterns. You stop resenting others and start addressing the unseen. You stop complaining and start declaring. You stop waiting for permission and start taking territory. Every time you rise in understanding, a layer of resistance weakens. Every time you act in faith, another chain loosens. Every time you choose courage over comfort, a gate begins to open. The moment resistance is broken, things that were slow become fast, and things that were hard become light. Alignment brings you into the flow of supply, and the breaking of resistance clears the road before you. When both happen together, limitation has no legal ground to remain. The mind becomes free, the spirit becomes bold, and the hands become productive. The struggle mentality begins to fade, replaced by a growth consciousness. Scarcity loses its voice. Fear loses its grip. And the life that once looked blocked begins to move in a new and unstoppable direction. With confidence replacing confusion, and expectation replacing anxiety, and momentum replacing stagnation, and clarity replacing doubt, and strength replacing weakness, and boldness replacing hesitation, and vision replacing fear, and movement replacing delay, and hope replacing weariness, and confidence replacing shame, and forward motion replacing backward pulls, and light replacing heaviness, and purpose replacing wandering, and peace replacing pressure, and certainty replacing confusion, and inspiration replacing frustration, and determination replacing passivity, and progress replacing stagnation, and favor replacing rejection, and courage replacing fear, and discipline replacing laziness, and wisdom replacing ignorance, and action replacing excuses, and insight replacing blindness, and strength replacing fatigue, and stability replacing chaos, and order replacing confusion, and growth replacing limitation, and life responding differently to your presence, and the environment responding to your movement, and the earth responding to your steps, and opportunities responding to your preparation, and provision responding to your positioning, and abundance responding to your alignment, and every form of delay giving room to increase, and the invisible barrier giving way to visible manifestation, and the unseen finally bowing to the determined, awakened, aligned, and persistent life that refuses to remain where resistance once ruled and where misalignment once stood watch over a future that was always meant to be free. Capacity is the unseen container that determines how long wealth can remain in a person's life. Money itself is neutral, but the one who holds it is never neutral. Wealth does not rest where there is no structure to support it. Just as a building collapses when its foundation is weak, abundance disappears when a person's internal framework is undeveloped. Many people think the challenge is receiving money, but history shows that receiving is the easy part. True test is sustaining. There are people who received large amounts by sudden opportunity, inheritance, business, or connection, and within a short time, everything vanished. Not because the money was evil, but because the mind, habits, discipline, and understanding of the individual had not grown to the level of what arrived. Money does not destroy people. Small capacity destroys